I'm really pleased to be here today. Now they're going to make me do a little spiel on IDB Lab, and then I'm going to get to a bit on my experience and what is really needed to finance innovation and creative projects effectively. But I think knowing a little bit about IDB Lab will give a little bit of context. Okay, so the Inter-American Development Bank Group, we're the largest multilateral for Latin America and the Caribbean, and we basically have three divisions. The big and mighty IDB really lends to governments within the region to help them advance their goals. So it could be climate, it could be schools, could be roads, could be anything that contributes to their development objectives and their strategic priorities. And those loans are offered at a very good rate to our member countries because we're AAA rated. So it's a very inexpensive form of financing, and the governments also get a lot of support in terms of the development and a lot of consultants to help them actually execute the project. IDB Invest is our private sector partner, so they would be like Republic Bank over here. We do not compete with banks, but sometimes there are large projects within the regional private sector, and we can either be the financier or we can consolidate financing and structure it to bring in other local lenders and reduce their risk. We're talking about a lot of money here too. Even in the Caribbean, we're looking at like 10 million US and up. And then we come to me. I'm a member of the IDB Lab. And our organization or our division, what we are focused on is being an innovation laboratory. And what does that mean? It means that there's a lot of creativity and a lot of thinking around how to really boost certain development priorities. And a lot of them are not on the normal radar. So what we do is we bring financial instruments, reimbursable grants, soft loans, to be able to fund these innovations and hopefully be able to strengthen them as well and help our partners to scale up. So where do we really focus? We focus in two areas. We focus where a solution has a big benefit for what we call the vulnerable segments of society. And I think there's been a lot of literature to really show that what we're talking about today, like climate adaptation, it is the poor that are most keenly affected and most directly affected every single day because they don't have the luxury of the air condition. Their houses get washed away in the flooding. They rely on public transport. When the road goes out, that's it. They may not even have tanks. So when the water supply goes down because of extreme climate, guess what? They don't have much of a backup. So we really focus on solutions that benefit the most vulnerable. And at the same time, we are trying to really stimulate dynamic business models that can do that. So it's a kind of interesting nexus of how do you really take a business model and be able to deliver it in a way that it impacts the most vulnerable in society. And we have the privilege of being able to do this in a little laboratory where we bring finance, connections, and knowledge with our partners to try some of this. So Vetiver, building on Vetiver was one such project. And as Jonathan has mentioned, small but mighty, because you heard that they were selected by the IDB as a superhero of development for 2022. I don't think that, it really is enough to say that without saying that this project competed with projects from the big bank, from the private sector, other IDB lab across 26 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. Okay. And the I Am Movement team were able to work their magic and get the recognition as one of 4 top projects financed by the IDB for 2022. So it's quite, we were delighted because we always said we knew we had the magic, and we kind of got validated that way. But people keep sending me these emails and saying, congrats on the project. I'm like, I didn't implement the project, and we'll get to that. It's I Am Movement. Okay, so we focus on these particular areas. As you'll see, climate is a cross-cutting issue for us. And then we have a specific interest in agriculture and natural capital. So we started to do a lot of stuff with mangroves, with forests. Under essential services, we started to do a lot in terms of sustainable infrastructure for delivery of basic services to people. And as I said, we bring financing, we bring knowledge, and we bring connections to the equation. So instead of going through the rest of this, I'll probably just skip to the end. I'm going to talk through some of this other stuff. I just want to give you an idea. So we've programmed $2 billion since 1993, 2,700 projects. And if I go back, which I can't, but if I were to go back, the impact that we've had has been pretty impressive in terms of what we've done. We've had about 32% of our projects have scaled, which means they've gone to much bigger, right? Thank you. 60% poor and vulnerable populations, 48% have a gender focus, 30% more or less deal with climate crisis, and 44% in the small countries, and that includes the Caribbean. So that's a quite disproportionate if you look at the whole IDB region. So let me just focus now on what it means to do innovation financing from our perspective. So, innovation, something new. First of all, we believe it has to be contextual, right? What's innovative in Guyana is not necessarily innovative in Brazil, and vice versa, right? So we look at innovation in the context of countries, in the context of the specific problem that they're trying to solve. And anytime you're trying to do something that is new or a new application, or you're taking something and using it in a very different way, there's a level of risk. And our money is not free. Donors provide our money to us. So we have to have accountability, and we have to safeguard those investments. So how do we mitigate the risk? So the first way we mitigate risk is that we really concentrate on areas of focus. Areas that we have identified, we have a certain level of expertise, areas that we feel are conducive to this kind of small-scale experimentation that has the potential to go bigger. And the second area that we mitigate risk is that we have a very rigorous selection process. So people like Jonathan and even Omar, they will tell you that you have to jump through a number of hoops, not necessarily in terms of documentation, but we really work very rigorously with potential applicants to help them define the problem and make sure that the value proposition or the idea that they are selling is related to solve that problem. That's key. And that we can show that this is a level of innovation. The third thing that we do is that once we have decided, okay, this looks okay, we do a fair amount of due diligence on our partners, right? We look at their, institutional good standing and all that stuff that a normal organization would do. But we look for something deeper. And I would say, going back to the previous panel, we look for a combination of social, intellectual, and experiential capital. Is this partner philosophically committed to solve this problem? Do they have experience and/or partners that can help them do it? And do they demonstrate the ability to really network and bring together actors? Because it is in bringing together small actors that small experiments can really balloon into much bigger impact solutions. The fourth area is we assist them with the technical design process. So, okay, when we first came across Jonathan and the building on Vetiver, he's like, oh, this Vetiver, and it's so great. And it's like, okay, Jonathan, so let's sit down and decide what specific area we're going to try and channel this Vetiver to solve. What model are we going to use? What are the results we're looking for? What kind of budget we need? How are we going to scale up? And what is going to be the environmental and social impact, as well as the development impact of this project? So it's quite an involved process, but we make sure that all these elements are aligned, okay? And once we have a strong design that we have done with a partner, that means that as we move into implementation, we have a shared vision. We're committed to one objective. And as the world turns and as the environment goes upside down and as things change as they do, and I think everybody in this room just doesn't want to hear the word VUCA or pivot one more time because we've heard it so many times during COVID, we could like throw something at me if I use it. But the reality is that the environment doesn't stay still and it is accelerating at a pace we've never seen. So the way that we de-risk these projects is we could go the route of saying, okay, you're supposed to buy a pencil and a box. Why didn't you do that? When something has changed and you don't need the pencil and the box anymore, you need, I don't know, a phone or something or a drone. So we give our partners the freedom to manage their budgets and manage their activities as long as everything they're doing is to get to that objective. And to ensure that they're staying with that objective, we disburse the money against a series of milestones, which are like markers that they're moving towards that project objective. So, I mean, my bosses would kill me if they heard me say, we really are not that concerned with the specific way that they get there. Yes, we are. We want them to do it in the right way. But change is inevitable. And as I always tell people, if I could sit down in a room with people like Jonathan or Vandana or Omar and design a project so perfectly that I knew what the outcome was going to be in the messy world of development, why would I be doing this job? I would obviously be sitting on Wall Street and betting against the stock because I would have a crystal ball. And I'm not one of those development people that is very scientific and says A and B will get you to outcome C. It's messy. There are people involved. Things change all the time. So the message is that the flexibility is really, really important. And the last thing that I'd like to say is that how we de-risk our projects. Sometimes we don't recognize that development is a very difficult path. When I left my corporate job to take up a position at the IDB, my former colleagues were saying, oh, you have this cushy job now, isn't it great? And, you know, you don't have to work that hard. And I said, you know, sometimes you really don't realize when you're trying to solve a development problem, whether it's an environmental issue, whether it's poverty, hunger, whatever it is, these are very, very difficult and problematic equations we're trying to solve. And sometimes I could run back screaming to do a marketing project. I really could. And recognizing that, the last thing that I want to say, which is the point I was getting to, is that we de-risk our projects by really giving our partners support. And sometimes that means giving them a call when they get discouraged, because it is very lonely journey out there to make a change, to be a change maker, to be a thought leader, to really try and do something different. And you come against all these obstacles on a daily basis and things don't go according to plan and the budgets and the objectives, and I have to do the reports and have I reached the targets? It's very, very difficult. And often, you know, you don't always get the gratitude from your beneficiary populations right away. They can not understand, or partners can be very difficult to work with. So we have found that just staying with them, creating open dialogue and connecting them to other like-minded people within our network, which then becomes their network, gives them the courage to continue. So with that, I would close and I would say that apart from IDB Lab ourselves, we were very privileged to work with the European Union a couple of years ago. And we have a Shaping the Future of Innovation Fund together with them. Well, most of the funding is from them. The call for proposals is open. So if you have a business and you are interested in innovating, please check out Kariri's website, Shaping the Future of Innovation. And this is specific funds for Trinidad and Tobago alone, our businesses. So with that, I'll say thank you.